Welcome back, friends. In today's cinematic narration about Abdullah and Neville Goddard, we're going to explore the forgotten wisdom and powerful teachings that shaped Neville's understanding of the law of assumption and the art of manifestation. Have you ever felt like there's a deeper truth about life, something just beyond your grasp? Abdullah's words are more than inspiring quotes. They are living principles that can transform how you see reality. So, if you're ready to awaken to the power of your own imagination, stay with us until the end. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, share this video with someone who needs it, and remember, you have the same creative power within you that Abdullah and Neville Goddard spoke about. Today, we'll uncover how to use it. Have you ever felt like there's something missing? Like the world around you is layered with meaning you can almost touch, but never quite grasp? Perhaps you've had those moments when you suspect life holds deeper truths that could transform the way you see everything, yourself, your relationships, your challenges, your dreams. What if those truths weren't locked away in secret books or reserved for a select few? What if the keys have always been right in front of you, hidden in plain sight, waiting for you to awaken? Abdullah's teachings are just such keys. They are not relics of another era, nor are they complicated philosophies designed only for scholars. His words are alive, pulsing with relevance, ready to guide anyone willing to listen with their heart and not just their mind. For decades, his name has been spoken softly, almost like a legend. Known best as the mentor who forever changed Neville Goddard's understanding of creation and reality, Abdullah himself seemed to walk with one foot in the invisible world and the other firmly planted here on earth. And while his teachings may seem simple at first glance, they hold depths that can reshape your entire perception of reality. What if everything you thought you knew about reality could be shifted by just a few powerful ideas? Abdullah's life and words answer this question with unshakable certainty. He did not present teachings to inspire momentary hope. He taught principles that demanded you step into the fullness of your true power. If you dare to live what he taught, everything changes. Let us begin by unveiling Abdullah's core principles, the bedrock upon which all his guidance rested. At the heart of his teaching is this: your consciousness is the foundation of your world. This was not a poetic metaphor for Abdullah. It was the law of life. What you assume to be true within yourself shapes what you experience externally. You do not merely react to the world around you, you create it through your inner state. This idea may sound simple, but if you pause and consider its implications, you will feel its weight. If your consciousness is the cause, then nothing in the external world is fixed. Everything you see is fluid, malleable, subject to the impressions you carry in your inner world. Abdullah would remind his students, stop trying to change the mirror, change your reflection. If you long for wealth, but dwell constantly in feelings of lack, the world cannot bring you abundance. If you seek love, but hold beliefs of unworthiness, relationships will only confirm those assumptions. If you desire freedom but constantly rehearse limitations in your thoughts, you will remain bound. This is the hidden depth of Abdullah's seemingly simple statement: live in the end. Living in the end means more than casually daydreaming about what you want. It means embodying the state of the wish fulfilled so completely that you become it. You stop thinking of your desired reality and begin thinking from it. You do not just imagine yourself healed, you feel the gratitude of already being whole. You do not simply visualize success, you conduct yourself as one who has already succeeded. This shift is not a trick. It is the natural law of consciousness in motion. Yet how often do we misinterpret Abdullah's words? We take them literally or twist them to fit our preconceptions, missing the depth he intended. When Neville Goddard recounted Abdullah telling him, "You are in Barbados, you went first class, you are there now," many dismissed it as metaphorical encouragement. But Abdullah was not speaking figuratively. He was demanding that Neville assume the feeling of already being in Barbados, despite every visible circumstance suggesting otherwise. He was showing him how to collapse the distance between desire and fulfillment. This brings us to one of Abdullah's most transformative teachings, the power of perspective. Perspective is everything. What you believe determines what you see, and what you see reinforces what you believe. It is a self-fulfilling cycle. Abdullah knew this and refused to let his students stay trapped in the narrow perspectives of fear and limitation. When Neville tried to explain why he could not possibly afford a trip to Barbados, Abdullah cut him off. He would not entertain the story of lack because he knew that doing so would only strengthen it. Think about your own life. How often do you give energy to the very states you long to leave behind? How often do you mentally rehearse worst-case scenarios, all while hoping for the best? Abdullah's words confront this tendency with uncompromising clarity. He invites you to step outside the old perspective and see life through the lens of already having what you desire. This is not denial, it is choosing a higher truth. Abdullah's teachings also call us into what can be called inner alchemy. This is the process of transforming yourself from the inside out, reshaping your consciousness so that your outer world must follow. It requires vigilance, yes, but it is not a struggle. It is a return to the natural order of things. When you change the inner state, the outer world inevitably reorganizes to match it. This is why Abdullah placed so much emphasis on your assumptions and inner conversations. He understood that what you entertain in the secrecy of your mind will eventually harden into fact. This inner alchemy begins with self-awareness. Pay attention to the stories you tell yourself, the words you speak silently when no one is listening. Are they filled with doubt, fear, and limitation? Or do they affirm the reality you desire? Abdullah would ask you to be brutally honest with yourself, not to shame you, but to set you free. You cannot transform what you refuse to acknowledge. Once you see the old patterns, you can consciously choose new ones. This is where the practice becomes both simple and profound. Instead of reacting to circumstances, you respond from the state of your fulfilled desire. Instead of waiting for evidence, you supply it inwardly through imagination. Instead of identifying with the version of yourself that struggles, you identify with the version who has already overcome. Every time you do this, you are engaging in inner alchemy. Abdullah's wisdom is not a relic of the past. It speaks with urgency to our world today, a world drowning in distraction and information overload. We scroll endlessly, consuming other people's lives, comparing ourselves, losing touch with the power within. Abdullah's teachings cut through the noise. They remind us that true clarity does not come from the outside, but from anchoring ourselves inwardly. Consider how relevant his guidance is in the digital age. In a world where opinions bombard us from every direction, it is easy to lose your sense of self. Abdullah would tell you, stop seeking validation in the external world. Withdraw from the noise and enter the stillness within, where your true authority resides. This is not escapism, it is reclaiming your power. When you are centered In the awareness of your true self, the chaos of the world cannot shake you. Imagine how different your life could be if you lived from that place of inner authority. Challenges would still arise, but you would see them differently. Instead of obstacles, you would see opportunities to deepen your faith. Instead of setbacks, you would see setups for greater manifestation. This is the transformation Abdullah's teachings make possible. And perhaps the most beautiful part is that you do not need to wait for perfect conditions to begin. You can start right now, in this very moment, by shifting your perspective. Pause and ask yourself, what state am I occupying? What assumptions am I living from? Do they align with the reality I wish to experience? If not, you have the power to choose again. This is the invitation of Abdullah's world. It is not about escaping reality. It is about awakening to the truth that you are shaping it moment by moment through your consciousness. The journey begins not by looking outward, but by turning inward. When you begin to see the world through Abdullah's lens, everything changes. Life stops feeling like a random sequence of events happening to you, and instead becomes a mirror reflecting your inner state. This realization is both liberating and confronting. It is liberating because it means you are never a victim of circumstances. It is confronting because it requires you to take full responsibility for what you hold in consciousness. Abdullah never softened this truth to make it more comfortable. He knew that the moment you accept it, you awaken to a level of power that nothing external can take away. But how often do we resist this truth? We cling to old assumptions because they feel familiar, even when they no longer serve us. We allow the outer world to dictate our inner state, reacting to appearances as though they are final. Abdullah would not allow his students to live this way. He understood that the external world is always in flux, shaped by what you assume to be true. To focus on it is to chase shadows. He demanded that his students anchor themselves in the unseen, in the imaginal act already accomplished. Abdullah's approach can seem harsh, especially in a culture that rewards excuses. But his uncompromising stance was born of compassion. He knew that indulging doubt or fear only strengthens it. He knew that if you truly want transformation, you cannot be half-hearted. You must choose the end you desire and remain loyal to it, no matter what the senses report. Consider the story Neville often shared about his trip to Barbados. When he told Abdullah he wanted to go home for Christmas but lacked the money, Abdullah did not entertain the conversation. "You are in Barbados," he said firmly. "You went first class, you are there now." There was no discussion about how it might happen. There was no sympathy for Neville's apparent lack. Abdullah was calling Neville to rise above appearances, to assume the end so completely that it became more real than his current circumstances. This story is more than an inspiring anecdote. It is a demonstration of the law in action. When Neville finally assumed he was in Barbados, the way was made. He received a first-class ticket, just as Abdullah declared. The outer world rearranged itself to match his inner state. This is how reality works, whether we realize it or not. But how do we apply this in our own lives? How do we remain faithful to the end when everything around us seems to contradict it? Abdullah's teachings offer a practical roadmap. The first step is to cultivate inner stillness. In a world filled with noise, this may be the most radical thing you can do. Withdraw from the distractions long enough to connect with your inner self. This could be as simple as sitting in silence for a few minutes each day, closing your eyes and breathing deeply. In that stillness, begin to imagine the end you desire. See it clearly. Feel it as though it is happening now. Allow the emotions of fulfillment to rise within you. The second step is to guard your inner conversations. Pay attention to the silent dialogue you have with yourself throughout the day. Are you reinforcing the old state of lack, failure, or fear? Or are you affirming the reality you wish to experience? Abdullah knew that these inner conversations are creative. They shape the outer world. If you catch yourself speaking defeat, do not condemn yourself. Simply choose again. Replace the old conversation with one aligned with your desired end. The third step is to act from the end. This does not mean forcing external action or pretending. It means allowing your inner assumption to guide your behavior. If you have assumed wealth, how would you carry yourself? If you have assumed healing, how would you move through the day? Begin to embody that version of yourself now. The outer world will reflect it. As you practice these steps, you will notice a shift. The things that once triggered fear or frustration will lose their grip. You will feel a growing sense of peace and certainty, even if the outer world has not yet changed. This is the hallmark of true transformation. The inner shift comes first. Abdullah's wisdom is particularly relevant in the digital age, where we are bombarded with information and comparison. It is easy to look at the highlight reels of others and feel as though we are behind, lacking, or unworthy. Abdullah would remind you that the only world that matters is the one you hold within. The external is just a shadow. Do not give it your power. This does not mean you withdraw from life or ignore responsibilities. On the contrary, when you are anchored in the awareness of your true self, you engage with life more fully. You see challenges as opportunities to practice living in the end. You approach relationships with a deeper sense of compassion and clarity. You move through the world with quiet confidence because you know that your imagination is the creative power of God. And yet, even as you practice these principles, doubts will arise. This is natural. The old state will try to pull you back because it feels familiar. When this happens, remember Abdullah's example. He did not argue with appearances. He did not plead for things to change. He simply held the end as already accomplished. If you can do the same, you will discover that the outer world eventually bends to match your inner state. One of the most profound aspects of Abdullah's teaching is that it is not limited by time or space. It does not matter where you are or what you have been through. The law is impartial. It responds only to your inner assumption. This means that your past does not define you. Your circumstances do not limit you. The moment you change your state of consciousness, your world begins to change. Think about this for a moment. How would you live if you truly believed this? How would you handle challenges if you knew they were simply reflections of old states that can be changed? How would you pursue your dreams if you understood that the power to create them is already within you? Abdullah's teachings invite you to live from this awareness. They ask you to stop waiting for the world to change and instead change the world within. This is the essence of inner alchemy. It is the process of dissolving the old self and stepping into the new. It is not always comfortable, but it is always worth it. And as you do, you will begin to notice something extraordinary. The world around you will start to reflect the shift. Opportunities will appear where there were none. Relationships will deepen. Challenges will transform into stepping stones. This is not magic. It is the natural outworking of the law. But you must be willing to persist. Abdullah's uncompromising nature was not a personality trait. It was a reflection of the law itself. You cannot plant a seed today and expect it to bear fruit tomorrow. You must water it with faith, nourish it with inner conversations aligned with your desire, and remain loyal to the end. If you do, the harvest is inevitable. Perhaps the most beautiful thing about Abdullah's teaching is that it awakens you to your true identity. You are not a victim of fate. You are not at the mercy of chance. You are the operant power. Your imagination is God in action. When you truly understand this, you no longer beg for things to happen. You no longer wait for someone to save you. You step into your role as creator and live from the awareness of already having. This is the enduring wisdom of Abdullah's words. It is as relevant now as it was in his time. In a world filled with uncertainty, his teachings offer a foundation that cannot be shaken. They remind us that true security does not come from the outer world, but from the inner state. And so the question is no longer, will the world change? The question is, will you change? Will you dare to assume the end and remain faithful to it? Will you dare to step out of the old patterns and live from the awareness of your fulfilled desire? This is the invitation Abdullah extends to you, a call to transformation that begins within. The moment you accept that your inner state shapes your outer world, everything shifts. Life no longer feels random. It becomes a canvas, and you are the artist holding the brush. But understand this, living from the end is not a one-time act. It is a way of life. It requires you to choose again and again the reality you wish to experience, even when appearances seem unchanged. It asks you to stop reacting and start creating. Abdullah's words are clear. Do not speak to me as though you are not there. You already are. This is not a suggestion. It is a declaration of truth. So how do you live this truth in a world filled with distractions, pressures, and challenges? You begin where you are with what you have. When a challenge arises, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, from which state am I responding? Am I acting from fear or from the awareness of already being? That simple pause can change everything. It shifts you from being a reactor to being a creator. You also practice gratitude, not as a ritual, but as a natural expression of living in the end. If you already had what you desired, how would you feel? What would you give thanks for? Gratitude aligns you with the state of fulfillment. It signals to your subconscious that the desire is already yours. And as you sustain that inner knowing, the world around you begins to reorganize. Abdullah's teachings are not about escaping life's challenges. They are about meeting them with a new perspective. When you know who you are, the operant power, the one who shapes reality, challenges become opportunities. They reveal the places where you are still holding on to old assumptions. They invite you to step deeper into faith. And faith, as Abdullah taught, is not blind. It is not hoping that something might happen. It is the conviction that it already has. Faith is the willingness to persist in the unseen until it becomes seen. It is the courage to stand firm when everything around you tells a different story. Imagine what your life would look like if you lived with that kind of faith. Imagine waking up each day knowing that your imagination is not a daydream, but the creative power of God within you. Imagine facing challenges with the unshakable awareness that the end is already secured. This is not wishful thinking. It is the way life was designed to work. Abdullah's legacy is not confined to the past. It is alive every time someone dares to live in the end. It is alive every time you refuse to be moved by appearances and instead hold fast to your desired reality. It is alive every time you awaken from the old state of limitation and step into the awareness of your true self. So now the question becomes, what end will you live in? What desire has been calling you, waiting for you to claim it as already done? You do not need to know how it will happen. You do not need to figure out the details. Your only task is to assume the state of the wish fulfilled and remain faithful to it. And as you do, remember Abdullah's uncompromising words, "You are already there." The world will try to pull you back into doubt. Old assumptions will rise to the surface. But you must persist. You must hold the end so vividly in your imagination that it becomes more real than the current circumstances. Because here is the truth. The outer world is not the cause of your life, it is the effect. The cause is within you. The moment you change your inner state, the world must follow. This is the law, and it does not fail. Let this awareness settle deep within you. You are not powerless. You are not waiting for life to give you permission. You are the operant power. Your imagination is God in action. What you dare to assume, you will experience. So step boldly into the end. See it, feel it, live it, and watch as the world reshapes itself around your faith. Because when you do, you will understand, just as Neville understood under Abdullah's guidance, that his words were never mere philosophy. They were a blueprint for a life of freedom, joy, and creation. They were a reminder that the deeper truth you've been searching for has been within you all along. Your journey begins now. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the timeless wisdom of Abdullah and Neville Goddard. If this message awakens something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear these teachings of the law of assumption and manifestation. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more cinematic narrations like this one. And if you'd like to support our work, you can find the link to buy us a coffee in the description. Live in the end, just as Abdullah taught Neville Goddard, and watch your entire reality transform.